On today's episode of Menstrual Mastery, we're talking all about cycle tracking and natural birth control for babes who have irregular periods. Something I hear all the time is I can't use natural birth control because I have irregular periods. And if I had a dollar for every time I heard this, you could call me Jean Ralphio because I would be flushed with cash. For real, though, I hear this all the time. And the truth is that it isn't true. If you're interested in using the sympto-thermal method of natural birth control and you have irregular periods, you absolutely can. In today's episode, we'll cover what causes irregular periods and why you shouldn't ignore them. We'll also talk about why hormonal birth control does not fix irregular periods or regulate your cycle. And we'll talk about why I think it's important for women with irregular periods to practice cycle tracking. And lastly, we'll talk about how to use natural birth control if you have irregular cycles. So let's dive in. I want to be upfront that I know what I'm going to talk about in this episode is really going to catch me some heat. And that's because conventional Western medicine approach for dealing with irregular periods is to quote unquote regulate them with hormonal birth control. And I'm pretty much about to advocate for the exact opposite approach. And here's why. Hormonal birth control doesn't regulate your cycle. This is a common and well executed myth. To understand why that is, we have to understand what causes irregular periods in the first place. So, irregular periods are caused by irregular ovulation. And irregular ovulation is caused by hormonal imbalance. Therefore, irregular periods are in fact caused by hormonal imbalances. This means that our hormones are not operating as they should, that something is off and it needs to be addressed. Our uterine lining thickens under the presence of estrogen, and we need it to be shedding out regularly. How does your uterine lining shed itself? By having a period. Your period is the shedding of your thickened uterine lining. And as for ovulation, it is important for many reasons, one of which is that we only make the calming hormone progesterone after we ovulate up until our period starts. Progesterone is responsible for preventing the uterine lining from getting too thick. It's responsible for balancing out estrogen and for having a calming effect on our cycle. Without adequate progesterone, our periods straight up suck. PMS makes us feel like a monster, and when we bleed a lot. When we have irregular periods, we are not shedding out our uterine lining regularly, and we're not ovulating regularly. Something's messed up. And hormonal birth control doesn't fix what's messed up. Hormonal birth control doesn't fix irregular periods or regulate your cycle. Instead, it pushes the underlying hormonal imbalance under the rug by getting rid of your natural hormone cycling. So instead of healing your hormones, it overrides them altogether. And hormonal birth control flatlines your hormones, takes away your natural cycling, and doesn't correct the imbalance that is causing irregular periods. It's basically a Band-Aid. And when you rip it off, irregular periods will likely be right there waiting for you. This is the reason why I am a big fan of cycle tracking for folks with irregular periods. Cycle tracking allows you to pinpoint what's going on in your cycle, get insight into your real time hormonal fluctuations, and allows you to identify and therefore fix what is out of balance. By fixing what's causing irregular periods, your cycle will become regular and you will be able to ovulate regularly and shed your uterine lining regularly as well. And as a bonus, Healing your hormones and getting a regular cycle makes using the sympto-thermal method of natural birth control just as easy as it would be for anyone else with regular periods. But let's talk for a second about what to do when your cycles haven't regulated yet. You're off of hormonal birth control, nourishing your hormones with the right foods, supplements, and lifestyle shifts to create a regular cycle, and you're waiting for your cycle to normalize. What do you do for birth control during that time? And you actually have many non hormonal birth control options available to you, including condoms, diaphragms, the pull out method, and even the symptothermal cycle tracking method that I use and teach here at Sauvage Wellness. In fact, I often see folks with irregular cycles choosing to use several of these methods at one time, like condoms paired with pulling out, or condoms paired with a diaphragm, or the symptothermal method with a combination of condoms, diaphragms, and or pulling out. You'll notice here I very specifically didn't mention the copper IUD. And that's because it alters the efficacy of cycle tracking by thickening normal cervical fluid and masking any cervical fluid shifts that would normally occur. It also creates a state of inflammation by creating a hostile environment for conception. And inflammation can wreak havoc on our bodies and impede regular ovulation, which is the exact thing we're trying to accomplish when we're working to heal irregular periods. For these reasons, it may not be all that helpful for some folks who are looking to heal irregular cycles to consider using the copper IUD. Now, using the symptothermal method while working to regulate your cycle allows you to have more knowledge about your cycle and more insight into the healing as it's happening in real time. And as for using the method as natural birth control while your cycle is still irregular, it can be done. And I see it done all the time with women who are newly off of hormonal birth control or even women who are newly postpartum when the cycles are almost always irregular for a stretch of time. Now, the symptothermal method has special circumstances for these irregular cycle phases to help guide you through making the most confident and effective decisions at that time. Even with an irregular cycle, you will likely show similar signs of fertility, like cervical fluid and temperature changes. We just see them happening far less often. Whereas in a regular cycle, we see these shifts monthly. In an irregular cycle, where periods only happen every couple of months, we would see cervical fluid and temperature changes only once every couple of months. But we will still see them. So you've heard it here first from a trained fertility awareness instructor. It is possible to use the symptothermal method of natural birth control with an irregular cycle. You just have to know what to look for and when to look for it in your unique cycle, at least until your cycle normalizes, which happens by healing the imbalance that is causing irregular cycles in the first place. And that is what fertility awareness instructors, women's healing arts coaches like myself are here to do, to help you apply the special circumstance rules to irregular cycles if you're looking to use the method as natural birth control, and to help you find the right foods, the right supplements, and the right lifestyle shifts to get those irregular cycles back on track so you are cycling regularly and this whole process of natural birth control becomes easier, but also so that your hormonal balance is optimized and you're in optimal wellness in your hormonal health.